is Wednesday, and you know what Wednesday means? Wednesday means it's the view from the top day, and we've got a fabulous show for you today. Good to see Cara there and Ray. Good to see Ray Abbott there. People coming in from all over the world. Susanna, we've got an amazing show for you today because we're going to be talking about cost estimates, but we're going to be talking about how we've moved from traditional cost estimates to smart cost estimates, and now to even smarter cost estimates. So we got something really quite cool for you guys to share with you today, and we're going to be doing a live demo of some, I just got to say, it's just cool, it's just funky tech that we've got out there. So you are going to love this, I promise that. And as if that's not enough, we've got a really great change maker with us today. I'm so pleased. We've got Natalie Rose with us today from Cloudsbed, and she's going to be telling us a bit about herself and her role. So we've got a great old show lined up for you today. Now, a bit of bad news. This is actually our last show before the summer break. So we are taking a summer break. So we will be off from the end of July and August, back in September. So please, everybody, enjoy today's show. Have a great summer. And then, as I said, we'll be back later on in the year. So what we're talking about today is how we can use artificial intelligence, AI, to power cost estimates. How we're going to move from traditional cost estimates to smart cost estimates to really very intelligent cost estimates, even smarter cost estimates. So that's what we've got coming up. Now, you know how it works, everybody. Please join in the conversation. Tell us who's there. I've seen lots of people coming in there. I saw Bindo, I think who's normally in India. I saw you said you're in Hong Kong today. I hope that's all going well for you there. So Shane, so Sarah, people coming in from all over the world, which is fantastic. Literally from all over the world, just so great. So as I said, next week we are off, but I know a lot of our viewers, one of the reasons you like the show is you get your credits. Now, if you want CPE credits, and whether you want them from Worldwide ERC and you want your GMS or your CRP credits, they're there. If you want your HRCI credits or your SHRM credits, they are there. So that's all there. I'll leave that up just for a moment or two so you can see the credits. Many thanks to our good friends at Worldwide ERC for giving us the GMS and CRP credits. And indeed, many thanks to our good friends at Rocket Mortgage for organising the credits with HRCI and SHRM. There's also been a lot going on this week. So let's just find out what's been going on in the wonderful world of global mobility over the last 7 days. So here it is. Here is our breaking news for the week. Congratulations to everyone that's been promoted, everyone's got a new job. A couple of particular shout outs, actually. A former guest on this show, Steve McGarry, is leaving WPP for Pastors New, and we wish him all the best in the next stage of his career. And also not in our video, but I came across it just today, which is Cohen Guillermo, who has been also a guest of the show, a very good friend of the show, is actually moving on to a new role at HPE and will be moving out of mobility into a new, more senior role. So congratulations to him on that promotion as well. So lots of things going on in the industry, a couple of new starters at Benivo there, which is also welcome to you from a very personal point of view. So that's what has been going on in the world, but also a lot of people do tune into the show to hear the incomparable Julia Onslow Cole give us an immigration update. So this week, like every other week, I'm delighted to welcome onto our stage the wonderful Julia Onslow Cole. So everybody, you know how it works. Now you've got to hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's give a really, really big round of applause and show our gratitude to Julia Onslow Cole.
Hi, Brian. Hi.
And I gather that as it's the last show before the break, you're doing a bit of a world tour, and you've really
Yes, I did exactly that. I'm just going to do a very quick world tour.
Go for it. Let's go around the world.
Okay, so so in the UK, the government said that they were going to raise £1 billion on visa fees because they wanted to put the money towards public sector pay. In the UK, we've had a lot of strikes, doctors, nurses, teachers, and the government is negotiating wages increase. So they're going to take £1 billion by ensuring that they put up the visa fees and the immigration health charges. And literally about 10 minutes before we started, I got a notification from the Home Office, because I sit on one of their stakeholder groups, that the actual fees, which are about 15 to 20%. So strongly recommend that everyone kind of looks at this, sees whether or not they can take some preemptive mitigatory planning. For example, they could now apply for longer visa periods so they don't have to have the extension fees, that sort of thing. But it's really important to bear it in mind because it's very expensive.
And this is real breaking news. So we've just heard this in the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, well, we heard that it was going to be I actually got the figures literally while I was just waiting. The second thing to say is that the government lost a judicial review, and it was a judicial review from someone who had pre-settled status. So if you remember, all the EU citizens who, when the UK left the EU, they were given a pre-settled status, which would go on to indefinite leave. And as a result of losing that case, the Home Office has announced that they now automatically going to extend people who have pre-settled status right up to they're eligible for indefinite leave, and they're automatically going to give as many people as possible a conversion to indefinite leave when the time comes. So that's a very important announcement, and a lot of that should happen automatically, but obviously it's very important that you follow up. I just wanted to highlight this. There's been an announcement in Russia, effective from January the 7th next year. There's going to be wide-ranging changes to Russia's highly qualified specialist category. And there's going to be a lot of relaxation, easier to get permanent residence, documentary requirements are relaxed, and the available regions in Russia where you can actually qualify to get one of these HQS permits has changed. So that's interesting.
So are many people moving into Russia these days?
I'm afraid, a lot of people are moving out, but I mean, obviously there will be people moving, and this is a good development for them. In the UAE, the Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratisation made a very, very important announcement about Emiratisation, saying that with effect from the 1st of January next year, companies with 20 to 49 employees that are in certain sectors will be subject to Emiratisation. And interestingly, GME I hope you don't mind saying this, Brian, little plug for GME, but they're holding a session in Dubai in September, and nearly all the pre-seminar questions were about Emiratisation, because now it's only if you're 50 plus workers. So it's a big change for smaller employers. Then quickly on to Vietnam. This is a country that we've talked about a lot because remember, this is the country that we have a lot of very good companies have set up in. They did that because they were coming out of Hong Kong. They couldn't set up in Singapore, to the extent they wanted because of the restrictions. And Vietnam was a very welcoming place. And then we remember they have got this Decree 152, which is really, really tricky. And Fragaman have been liaising, as has others, with the government. They've just announced some potential changes, and these are really good ones, but it's still a consultation. One of the key things is that the way it's called job position approvals, they're actually often what's happening now, you get them rejected like 3 or 4 times before you can apply. So they're going to make the process slightly better, but it's still a consultation. Anyone who's got business there, please participate in the consultation. Italy have made a really great change so that non-EU nationals working in Italy under an EU blue card, an ICT or an EU ICT, or seasonal workers, they are allowed to enter Italy and work before signing the contract to stay. And there was so much delay with that contract to stay that by changing that process, it's really fantastic. And then 2 more announcements. One is Canada. They announced this new tech talent strategy. It's a host of new work permits, but the thing that's catching everyone's eye is that if you're in the US and you're on an H-1B, then they've opened up 10,000 places for people on that H-1B to go to Canada and work for 3 years. Very generous scheme. And they've had a rush of applications. And when they get to 10,000 or 1 year on, they're going to close the scheme. So that's quite exciting. And then finally, Germany have got a new immigration bill. A bit of a shout out to Marius Tollenberry from our German office, who was giving commentary on that and gave some expert advice to Parliament in Germany on it. And basically, they are looking at changing everything so that you look at the ability of the foreign national, not their qualifications. Now, this is a real step forward. Immigration is so behind all over the world, and it's all about what qualifications do you have, but they're changing everything. So it's really about what vocational experience you have and, are you fit for the role? And this is really in line with the future. So that's a really positive note to end, and hope everyone has a lovely summer.
It certainly is, because that's really been, I've been thinking about that, because a lot of governments now are saying that actually a lot of employers are saying maybe you don't need a university degree, maybe you can do some form of apprenticeship instead and go straight from school. But actually, from an immigration point of view, of course, those points that you get from having a degree are all important. So It's very, very interesting development there. Julia, as ever, many, many thanks. Have a great
Thank you for everyone who's tuned in. It's lovely to see like Marilee and Bindu and yes, and it's so really great to have such a nice audience.
We've got nearly 200. Actually, that's just on LinkedIn, let alone our Facebook and YouTube people as well. So we've got a big audience, which means we are going to move on. So everybody, let's give a really, really big thank you to Julia Onslow-Cole, and we're going to welcome onto the stage for the very first time our change maker of the week, Natalie Rose from Cloudbeds. So please, everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say thank you to Julia Onslow-Cole and welcome to the very first time onto our stage to Natalie Rose. Natalie, welcome to the show. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Brian.
Good. And I see you're feeding South Florida, which is very ambitious. Well, all of it?
All of it. That's the aim.
Whoa. And do I take it that you're from South Florida then?
Absolutely not. I'm from further south. I'm from this beautiful and big country called Jamaica. I'm a proud Jamaican and also a dual citizen of the United States.
Okay. And how long have you been in Florida? Because I know you've moved to lots of different places in your
Yes. I've lived in 3 countries so far, moved 13 times in the last 19 years. And right now I've been here for 4 years. I am an immigrant. I live immigration. I know about being mobile.
13 times in 19 years. That's so I knew somebody like that, but they were on the run.
No, I'm told I need to live with my husband. So he keeps moving and I guess I keep following him.
Okay, so you've been, I can't use that phrase, trailing spouse anymore, but you've been accompanying.
Absolutely. I've been at trailing spouse literally and figuratively, had to actually move to Canada when he was on assignment there. So I know from the practical experience as well, of course, my years of experience in immigration. So yes, I think it gives you really a good perspective to know what clients go through, what the population that is moving go through when you've actually lived it.
And you're a big fan of the show, you were telling me earlier.
Huge fan. So I've actually been working now with Cloudbeds for a little over a year. Exciting, innovative tech company. In my previous life, they would have been my client, but now I'm corporate and in-house. So in order to have reliable information and to keep up to date, I definitely try my best to join in every week. It's easy, it's engaging, it's informative and trustworthy. And so I do like also hearing a lot about the changes and services that Benivo provides. And my experience has been fantastic for over a year now, also as being a part of the Changemaker group.
And what do you get out of being a change maker?
This is personal. I've actually volunteered since I was 10. And I'm kind of far from 10. And one of the things that I do is that for each country that I move to or a city, how do I get involved? This is where I am. How do I make an impact? And so that's the main reason. And I really like the partnership with Benivo. Okay, you volunteer, you give us some time, some feedback, and this is what we will do. We will give back. So it really is, it's a mutually beneficial situation, for me at least.
Okay. Well, Natalie, it's been great having you as a change maker. Anybody else who wants to be a change maker, do make contact with us, in particular with Tally, if you're interested in becoming a change maker, because we're always looking for more. We're looking for in-house mobility professionals who've got a passion for technology and a passion for changing both mobility and the world for the better. So, Natalie, Cloudbeds, it's a hotel booking platform, isn't it? Is that?
But so basically, it's a software as a service. So we actually have this software that if you are a small business owner, you have maybe 100 rooms or less, we are able to help you operate that business end to end, from scheduling your staff, helping with your marketing, dealing with billing. We have an entire team that is really dedicated on the product side, the marketing side, and absolutely in terms of customer service. Right now we're expanding, so it's exciting times and scary times at the same time. But we are actually based in San Diego, but we actually have 6 entities throughout the world. So we really having a far reach, and we just hope to continue growing.
Okay, well, it's just amazing. It's a great company. It's obviously a great service that you guys are providing, and I know you've got a reasonable sized program of people, and you've come into it from an immigration background, but you're now doing a mobility role. So we're going to move on because we need to talk about cost estimates and the whole future. But Natalie, just so much thanks to you for being on our show and being in the audience. I said, if anybody out there would also like to be on the show or would like to join the change makers, do reach out, especially over the summer break. We will be back with some fascinating new stuff post the August break. But meanwhile, what I am going to do is I'm going to bring onto the show the wonderful Mary Weaver, who's with Benivo out in Atlanta, who's going to be giving us an update on some of the latest developments that she has been dealing with. So everybody, let's say thank you to Natalie and a hello to Mary in the traditional way. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome onto the stage Mary Weaver and say goodbye for now to Natalie Rose.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how are you doing? Is it as burning in Atlanta as it seems to be everywhere else in Europe?
Yes, it absolutely is. I think one of our viewers indicated just how warm it is here in Atlanta, but I'm happy to be here and share some announcements with you today from the Benivo team.
Go for it. Tell us what's news.
Sure. So first, I'm super excited to share that the U.S. Domestic Relocation Benchmark Report has been completed. It has already been sent out to everyone who participated in the survey. So thank you to those who did that. And then next week, it will be published to everyone and will be accessible from the Benivo homepage, or you can also access it from the link. Tally's going to go ahead and drop that in the chat now. And then starting on Monday, you can access the report from that link. So our policy advisory team really did a great job summarizing these results in a meaningful way. So be sure to check that out next week. The next announcement I have is about some exciting sessions we'll be offering soon. If today's show leaves you hungry for more knowledge about AI-powered cost estimate scenarios, we have some great news for you. You can explore those topics further in small group sessions over the next couple weeks. We'll be offering these cost estimate sessions so you can get a more in-depth understanding of how the cost estimate planning tool can add value to your program. Tally will also drop the link in the chat for this so that you can sign up for one of these sessions in the coming weeks. And then finally, I would like to announce that we will be hosting a social networking event for changemakers and corporate friends in the Atlanta area in mid to late August. And we'll gather in a casual setting to socialize and chat about all things AI and GPT in mobility. So more details to come on that soon. But if you are interested, please drop me a quick email so I can make sure you get the invitation and can join us.
Okay, so thank you so much for that, Mary, for that update there. And if I was in the Atlanta region, I would definitely be popping in to join you. Sadly, I'm not, but if I were, I would be there. If you are out in that region, you can get to Atlanta, then I'm sure Mary and the team would just love to see you and have a chat with you at that event. We're now going to move on to the main subject of the show today, which is dynamic. I see Ellen comment. Yeah, absolutely, Ellen. It's not that warm here either. I accept that, but it is warm everywhere else in Europe, and I'm just hoping it'll get warmer here soon. We're going to talk about dynamic cost estimates, which is really very, very new and cutting edge. And we've got not one, not two, but three wonderful experts joining us on the show today. We've got Beth Nielsen, we've got Matan Weiner, and we've got Pankaj Bhatia, who are all coming at cost estimates from slightly different perspectives. So we've got a great show for you lined up just now. We're going to go straight into it. So everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big thank you to Mary Weaver and all the work she's been doing, and a big welcome to Beth, to Matan, and to Pankaj. tell me, each of you, I don't know if that was just me, I got a bit of video replaying then for some reason, the wonders of technology. So we've got Matan, we've got Beth, we've got Pankaj. Maybe just a quick introduction, your different perspectives, how you come into this. So Pankaj, I'll start with you. Now, I know that you've, of course, have worked in-house and you've got a bit of a tax background. So tell us a bit about yourself and your interest in cost estimates.
Well, I started my career with Big Four, Brian, and certainly was involved with the cost estimates, and then around 20 plus years of experience in in-house roles. And I was focusing a lot on taxes, a lot of discussions with the business around deployment of talent from all kind of country combinations. So the cost estimate generally was the first thing that we kind of talked about as part of any discussion on the assignment. So I would say that's perhaps, like I said, anything and everything around mobility actually at least has a big involvement from a cost estimate perspective.
Yeah, because it's normally the first response, you do a cost estimate and somebody says how much is the sort of normal reaction you get. So Beth, what's your perspective on cost estimates? Tell us about your interest in them.
Yeah, well, cost estimates have been such an integral part of my entire career. So, as you know, I've been around in mobility for about 16 years. And when I was at the Big Four, I did lots and lots of cost estimates. And then I actually moved to work for a couple of technology providers, coding cost estimates, researching the actual tax positions, building cost estimates, and then implementing and reviewing them when I worked at an RMC. So, yeah, cost estimates very much part of my entire career.
Okay. And Matan, you're the new boy on this particular area because you're quite new to mobility, but you've come from a tech background. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure, but I'm happy to. So I'm an engineer in my background. I finished a master in biomedical engineering and jumped onto the semiconductors industry for about 4.5 years. Just recently finished an MBA here in London and started working in Benivo back in April, so pretty much the new boy. I was extremely excited to take ownership of the financial product portfolio, and the top of this list is definitely cost estimation and dynamic cost savings.
Okay, well, so let's get into that because we've approached cost estimates from different angles: the in-house angle, the user experience angle, obviously the tech angle. But let's just go back in history like a year, not a long time, or a long time in Benivo terms, but traditionally, what were cost estimates like? Maybe Beth, you want to kick off, what was the problem that we were trying to solve initially with cost estimates? Why were they so, I don't know what the opposite of smart cost estimates is, but I'll be polite. I'll call them traditional cost estimates. But what was the problem?
Well, I think the problem that is still evident in many of the people that I speak to is that they either don't have a cost estimate tool, so they're doing something manually on an Excel spreadsheet, researching it. Maybe they're going to their provider and being charged thousands of dollars every time they do a cost estimate or a revision. It's very limited. It's quite slow. And as I said, it's just quite expensive. So the traditional cost estimate, although it's long been recognized as something that is vital, especially in this time of cost cutting and cost awareness and return on investment, it's always been quite a time consuming or expensive thing to complete.
So
I know Pankaj has probably got his industry experience as well to speak to the pain.
Yeah, because help me out here, Pankaj, because it took time to do, and then it took time, it got sent off, and then it came back, and that took whatever, 48 hours. As Ellen's put, what wasn't the problem? Static, one size fits all, time consuming. Ellen, we are on your page. So, I mean, it was very, very time consuming, but also, and slow, but also that it was expensive, wasn't it? So, I mean, tell us a bit about that from a user experience, Pankaj.
Right. So certainly, especially in cases where you are modifying any of the variables based on which a cost estimate is prepared. Hypothetically, let's say, your shipment cost or any other cost are varying, or your assignment dates are changing, or your policies are changing. It's it's something which is very, very huge in terms of the impact that it may have, right? So while we may only think from a cost perspective for variable components like housing, allowances, etc., but the bigger impact is around the tax and the other compliance cost, etc., right? Because any small change potentially, Brian, could lead to a big change on the compliance cost, on the overall cost, etc. And that understanding is something which is not very easily available, as I think most folks on the call will know, that the tax laws for each country vary quite a lot. And then we are talking about multiple country combinations. The complexity was so huge that a lot of people were kind of, skeptical, kind of putting their hands into this particular area. So there's always apprehension in terms of, any of the variables which were changing.
And excuse my ignorance here, but what would in the old-fashioned model, what would a cost estimate typically cost?
It could be anywhere from maybe $200, $300 to maybe a couple of $1,000, depending on the complexity, depending on the components. If you've got stocks, the variable pay, etc., coming in. So that's where it kind of gets into higher cost. And we are just talking about, Brian, one calculation, right? And remember, I was talking about any variable changing, anything changing, that may mean that you are rerunning a cost estimate, and the cost kind of multiplies accordingly.
Absolutely, because you might turn around and say, well, that's the cost, and then the line comes back and says, well, actually that's too much, and then you go back and say, well, what could we do? We could maybe change the policy, or we could maybe change the location or the duration, or we could start doing what ifs. But that became even slower, and definitely you'd be racking up the costs every time you did another one. So we've started breaking the mold, and we've done this in two stages. The first stage, and they're out there at the moment, are what we call smart cost estimates. And we'll talk about those. And then the next stage that we're releasing today is the even smarter cost estimates, what we call dynamic cost estimate, AI-powered cost estimates, where actually it does the answering the question. It actually asks the question for you. So if you like, stage one was you could do lots of different what ifs, all that sort of stuff in there. Stage two was, well, actually, maybe we don't have to do the what ifs. Maybe the machine could do the what ifs for us. So let's just do this. Let's build this up stage by stage. So Beth, tell us a little bit about, if you like, how we broke the mold, the limitations of the current model, and what a smart cost estimate is before we get on to the even smarter cost estimates.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Brian. So we've done some shows a few months ago on the smart cost estimate, and how Benivo broke the mold is that we said cost estimates are free. They are included as standard in our Benivo licensing model, and you can do unlimited numbers of cost estimates. Okay, and it's integrated.
So whereas in the world that Pankaj was talking about earlier, you might be paying anywhere between $200 and $1,000 per pop, we're now talking about unlimited for zilch.
Exactly. And not just that, we will build those templates for you. You don't need a subject matter expert. We will upload your data for you, and you get your cost estimates with a workflow, with Vialto Partners tax logic, and integration with your data, all included. So that was a huge revolutionary moment in the world of mobility and cost estimates.
Okay.
And if I may add...
Okay, tell us a bit more about
if I may just... Yeah, so if I may add just a couple of other points as well. As part of the smart cost estimate, we've also automated the approval process. So that was one of the challenge which a lot of organizations were facing, where once the cost estimates are done, those are sent through emails, and with the data security and other issues, if you get someone wrong on the email, that creates a huge kind of a issue. Tracking when those approvals come in, what are the approvals which are outstanding, how long have they been outstanding for. So I think that's one area which was there. The other thing is also now we are able to use the actual data, right? Because a lot of data which is being used in the cost estimate historically was based on historical data, right? But what we saw with the COVID situation, what we are seeing now, the cost changed significantly, and shipping was a great example, right? During the COVID times, where the costs were just kind of very, very high. So we are able to actually use the actual data, which provides you much more accurate cost estimates.
If I can give the product perspective here, I want to highlight how streamlined the process really is, because we are working with our clients to define the policies in advance. And each time we are running a what if or a cost estimate, everything is automatically pre-filled, which makes the process smooth and incredibly quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. I get all that. So it's streamlined. It's streamlined to the company, to their policies. It's got linked to actual data, and it's powered by one of the leading tax engines in the world, the Vialto tax engine, and it gives you the answer within seconds or so. It's pretty immediate, the answers, which is really, really cool. And you know, I know loads of companies are now doing smart cost estimates. It's really started changing the world. But I suppose the problem with that is that if you want to do a what if calculation, you have to think what the what if is, and that relies on you doing the thinking. We were talking about this earlier. We're trying to think of analogies in the real world, because in the real world, quite often we interact with a platform, and the platform does some thinking for us. And maybe we can sort of brainstorm some ideas. I mean, I know if I think about it, you know, if I'm looking to watch something on Netflix, it might come up and make suggestions for me, and that says, well, because you like that, you might like this. Okay, you know, the machine, if you like, is thinking for me. And I think those other ones, we were talking about booking travel, and I mean, Beth, maybe you were talking about some of the examples that you've seen where, you know,
yeah, exactly.
Does the thinking for you.
Who does the thinking? Exactly. It's where, so I've got kids, so I've got a constraint of having to go on holiday within the summer holidays. But my constraints are really, I don't really mind when I go. It just has to be sometime in this period. And obviously from work perspective, I've got either 1 or 2 weeks that I want to take off, either as a you know, together or broken up. And that's how we operate in the real world. And we use technology to help us. So I don't go and look at every single package holiday. I don't go and look at every single flight. I get suggestions through AI, through everyday internet options. And the thing I love about what we're presenting today is that our engineers saw that in the real world and then went, hang on a second, why don't we have that within cost estimates? Why don't we have that within mobility? And it's just, you know, I know I talk every week I come on the show about how excited I am working for Benivo, but this is the sort of things that our engineers come up with that nobody else does, because they see things in the real world and then apply them and do it so quickly. Yeah, I'm just so excited about today.
So I know, Matan, you were talking about the example of flights where, you know, you book a holiday, but actually as you're booking it, it might come up to you and say, well, you know, do you realize you can make it this much cheaper if you book a few days earlier?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the complexity is much bigger, right? So when you go to book a flight, you have, like Beth mentioned, the flexibility in the dates and the exact duration, but you can also dive deeper into what service providers am I looking for? How many stops am I willing to have on the way there? Along with many other options, right? So the route and all of this is integrated into a very simple solution to the user himself.
Okay, well, I think maybe we ought to start sort of getting it into what the new solution looks like. By the way, if out there you've got questions you want to ask the team, please just put them in the comments box and we'll try and deal with your questions. But let me just start off then by saying, okay, well, what does the new one look like? I mean, Beth, do you just want to sort of look at, you know, move on this and say, well, we've talked about something pretty revolutionary, which is where in my simple world, the machine, if there is such a thing, is actually doing the what-ifery, if that's a word. We don't have to think about it. But so give me some examples of the sort of things that these even smarter cost estimates, dynamic cost estimates can do.
Yeah, so what we're going to show you today is how Benivo are taking steps to transform the role of mobility from reactive to proactive, from operational. So operational, as we said, smart cost estimates, brilliant. It's a fantastic tool, but you have to go in and run a cost estimate and you have to decide the start date and the end date. As I just said, in the real world, that start date is probably flexible. And I know from my experience, I've run so many cost estimates, and most of them start on the 1st of January or maybe the 1st of June, 1st of July. And that's actually not when the person's going on assignment. It's kind of when you're planning maybe around the middle of the year or around the start of the year. So what we've done at Benivo is bring you AI-powered scenarios, which means when you run a cost estimate, the computer will then run multiple additional cost estimates behind the scenes, varying duration and tax year, so that you can get the benefits of potential cost savings that the business might not have thought about. And it's just such an, I don't want to say it's obvious because it's not, but it is just such an application of what we do in the real world to mobility, and there's so much more to come as well. But that's what we're going to show you today, those two dynamics and variables.
So what you get is, if you like, the output is you get something that says this is what the cost is based on the criteria you've given us. The cost is X, but actually, if you flex this or that, the cost could be, Y or Z. So you get that, and it runs multiple scenarios. Now I know that there's a difference between what is actually out there now and what is coming down the, if you like, the turnpike. So Pankaj, tell us about the things that we've now got in and what is coming out in the next release over the next couple of months too, so people can see the way it's going.
Sure. And just before I answer that question, Brian, on your earlier comment where you're saying that you'll get a Y or Z cost, let me just clarify. The Y or Z cost will be a cost which will be lower than what was the cost in the original scenario. So coming to your question, Brian, a couple of things is what we are already live with as part of our platform. One is on the assignment duration, right? So if you are able to vary your assignment duration, the scenarios which are run in the backend, they are able to identify by varying the start and end date and the duration as to different scenarios where you are able to get lower cost as compared to the scenario that you were originally looking at. To Beth's point, where she was saying that generally, when you're doing an initial cost estimate, your start end dates are generally kind of estimated, right? And then by these additional scenarios which are run in the backend, it will kind of show you that if you're able to reduce the assignment or increase the assignment, you're able to reduce the cost by such and such thing. There are a number of factors which may influence that, Brian. So for example, it could be based on the fact that the tax laws of certain country, you are able to break tax residency, and so you are able to reduce taxes. In some cases, you are able to take certain tax treaty benefits which are available. In certain other situations, there are specific country rules. So as an example, UK or US may have certain specific exemptions which are provided for assignment duration, lower than a certain threshold. So US, for example, has a 1-year rule. UK has a 3-year and a 2-year rule, which is there. So by varying those durations, you're able to bring down the cost. So that's kind of one that we're already live with. The second scenario that we're already live with is around the change in the tax years. So again, we do understand that the tax years actually vary for most of the countries. Some are on a calendar year basis, some are on a fiscal year basis. So again, the AI scenarios which are run in the backend actually runs that logic behind the scenes where it actually plays around and changes the duration based on the tax years and then throws out, lower cost scenarios.
Okay. Well, I think actually, without further ado, we really will get in and see it. So Matan, do you want to sort of talk us through a little bit and show us a demo and show us what it can do?
Yeah, of course. So I'm happy to take you to where the magic is happening. And can you just share my screen, Brian?
Sure.
Great. So as we mentioned, the dynamic cost saving are built on top of the smart cost estimates that we already have. So in order to start the process, I'll take you to the beginning. So we are at the cost estimation tab. And as you can see, we are doing a what-if scenario. The first step is actually to enter, as Beth mentioned, some first details, which include demographics, the start and end date, obviously the policy which we are choosing, which Pankaj just mentioned that it will apply the treaty and totalization, and this applies only in cases that the treaty or totalization are actually applicable. And then obviously there is the currency. Once you click next, you are directed into the additional information step. This is the second step out of 4. And here, as we mentioned before, you see how streamlined the process is. So you define a policy once in the implementation stage with Benivo. And then each time you are running a cost estimate, you will already have all the default configuration automatically pre-filled in all the cost line fields. Then you can just click on next if you don't have anything to specifically change, right? Then you get to the third step, which is the cost estimation step. Here you essentially have an overview of the entire information. You can edit and change if you have some edits to make. Leave a comment in order to remember why did you do it. And then essentially you have the calculation step, right? So the run calculation actually takes you to the smart cost estimates, and it will, as Pankaj mentioned, just automatically calculate the current cost estimate that you plugged in. And we estimate that the savings would be $2,000 to $1,000 for each one of the cost estimations. And now the star of this show is actually the cost saving scenarios. So if we are clicking on the cost saving scenario, we are directed into the saving scenario screen. As Pankaj just mentioned, we are currently live with 2 drivers to savings, one of which is the duration. We can change the duration from the start of the assignment, from the end of the assignment, or from both sides. And we are doing it in a smart way in order to shorten the process. This is where AI kicks in, right? In the same way, there is the change tax year. And obviously, we can configure whatever we want. If we don't choose any, there is no point of running the calculation. But for our example here, let's compute both of them. Once we click, we are directed to the calculation screen. And here, because we are running multiple scenarios in the back end, running through the API of Vialto Partners, it might take a few minutes. So what I did was to prepare a cost estimate in advance. And you can obviously leave the screen, and what you see here in the first line on the grid is actually the calculation that we are currently running, right? But for the sake of this demo, let's just jump right into the actual results. And what you see in the results tab is...
Oh, I love it. So we got red, amber, green. We got traffic.
Yes.
Lights.
So, and not surprisingly, those colors represent the total cost. So the less, the better, I guess, in terms of costs.
So
and
the top
you can
one,
see
the most expensive one, the red one, is the current
the
one.
original one.
Nothing was
As
varied.
you can see. Yeah, very expensive.
800
And we have two cost saving scenarios that are flagged with the saving symbol that we added here. And you can see that both scenarios are actually change duration type. And I want to stress out that we do say that we are taking 2 drivers, the duration and the tax year, but obviously we're doing it in a smart way. So we are cutting the duration in order to also save in tax years. And you could really see the results translate into the short summary that we have here. So if, for example, we have tax costs in the original scenario that are $540K, we cut them almost in half. I think that would be like 48%, 47 to 285. I think that's really an incredible result. And you can see in the duration.
That's just on one move. Now imagine if you've got
exactly
people who you're moving. We're talking here millions of dollars of savings.
And not just savings, Brian, millions of dollars of data that you can attribute to the global mobility team as savings that you have generated by being consultative. And that's why I see this as a big game changer. Anyone can run cost estimates. You can ask your tax experts. You can send for advice that maybe you could save this money. But we're offering this for free, unlimited, and at everybody's fingertips. And that's the bit that's really exciting to me. The fact that everyone can now access this.
This is so powerful, because we always talk about mobility being strategic, mobility having a seat at the table. And we've always said this, well, we've got to show ways mobility is showing value. But here we are seeing, I mean, the screen is going mad. I'm seeing hearts and people are loving this. If people have got comments, do write them in the comments box.
Brian, this is only the beginning as far as we are concerned.
Yeah, because we said, because the next one is going to say we're going to look at changes in policy, changes in location. But as I said, I've invented this word, what-ifery. We've taken the what-ifery out of us having to do it, and the machine is doing it for us and is coming back and saying, we don't even have to ask the question anymore. It is asking the question for us and saying, did you know you can actually get the cost down by doing what are the differences are? Maybe Pankaj or Beth, just talk us through in these examples why these changes are so significant.
I'll talk through the non-tax ones, Pankaj, and then I'll hand over to you for the difficult ones. Obviously, the first one is a year and 2 months. So one of the key things to highlight is that this is not all through tax planning. You can see here that the second and third options, the amber and green, are shorter. So obviously, if you've got a shorter duration of assignment, they're going to have lower compensation costs. So you can see that reflected on the right-hand side. This is not all coming from planning. It's coming from a shorter assignment. And that might not be possible. You might need your resource there for 14 months. But if you don't, then the business has this option, right? Also, you can see that affects the ongoing assignment allowances. But what it doesn't affect is the relocation costs. So they remain consistent. So the biggest difference, as Matan highlighted in this case, which is due to an actual tax position, is due to the tax costs going down. So Pankaj, over to you to explain those ones.
Sure. And like I was mentioning, Brian, I think this particular case that we are talking about, so we are seeing the assignment into US. So US has certain specific tax provisions where if your assignment is 12 months or below, certain expenses which would have otherwise been taxable are treated as business expenses and are not taxable, right? So you can imagine with the high tax rates and the further gross ups, etc., how the taxes get compounded significantly, right? So that's where if you're able to reduce the duration, and the original duration was 1 year, 2 months, and we've kind of just reducing it to 1 year or below 1 year, we are able to see the benefits of that tax. In the third case that we are talking about, the 562(1), not just the assignment duration is 1 year, but also the fact that it's in the same tax year, right? So that also has an impact, because if it's in the same tax year, we are talking about the tax returns being filed for one particular tax year, as opposed to 2 years, where, if you're having the assignment being extended between 2 tax years, the cost actually go up. So like I said, I think these multiple scenarios are run in the back end, and what you see over here is a very simplified version which can very easily be understood by anyone, including by folks who are tax experts as well.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm taking a question. There's one here from Terry, who said, can you talk about the data behind the scenes that is used to develop the cost estimate? So maybe Beth, just talk a little bit about the data that is used.
Well, so the tax data comes from Vialto Partners, so that is updated on a regular basis. If you're talking about the data that goes into the cost estimate, that varies depending on what our clients want to put in. So that could be an integration with a data provider, it could be their historical data, or as Pankaj mentioned earlier, the way that we're making it even smarter is using your historical data, maybe averages of that, so that you get actual live relevant data that reflects your company's policies and actual costs that you've incurred. I hope that answers that question.
That's great. And a couple of things. Henri has asked the question. I'll just pull this one up here. He says, can you customize your report to tailor to the specific tax situation of each country?
Right. So we do have that ability, Brian, where based on so the default tax logic is the Vialto Partners tax logic, which is there. But for each client, and we do understand sometimes maybe they are using a different tax service providers, there may be certain specific positions which may be taken. The tool does provide the ability to customize it based on a company's position. So the short answer to that is certainly yes, it can be done. And if I may also add, while we've got these three scenarios over here, typically when we are doing an implementation for a client, we will understand from them that what are the variables that they are able to control, right? If there are certain things that is a total not doable within a particular organization based on a setup, that's something that we will not build into those scenarios. But the ones where the organizations are flexible, we will customize it based on their policies, etc.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if I could do a plug for our sessions, Brian, if people have questions and want to know more, please sign up for the sessions. I think Tally put the link in the comments. I'm going to be leading the UK-based ones. My colleagues in the US are going to be leading the US-based ones. Sign up. We'll take all of your questions. We'll give you a more in-depth demo. And we're really, really excited to share this with everybody.
Because this really is quite groundbreaking in terms of what it's doing. Arjun asked the question, is there some way of accumulating the tax savings that you've made and feeding that back into a report? And maybe Pankaj or Beth could just tell us a little bit about how you can accumulate the savings.
Yes. So as part, sorry, go ahead, Beth. Go ahead.
I was going to say that one of the main things that you can do is, as you saw on that screen, and as Pankaj referenced earlier, you can send this for approval. So you don't just necessarily send the cheapest one for approval. You send the original and the one that you recommend, or maybe all three, and that goes through our secure approval process. And therefore, you can see and track what was the original cost versus the alternative. And yet, we're going to have the dashboards and all the reporting. And as I said, that is the superpower to me, that you are actually doing a measurable cost saving. I mean, how many of us would love to have the ability to show you've saved a potential $5 million or whatever it would be just through smarter cost estimates?
That's great, Beth. I just want to add that the process of approval is also super, super streamlined. So all you need to do is actually on the action button that you saw, press send for approval. It will in seconds reach to the approver email, and he can redirect to approve on the platform from a link on the mail. And you can choose whichever scenario you want to approve, and he will obviously see all of the scenarios and he can compare. I didn't mention, but you can obviously download different types of sheets in order to look to dive deep into the details of each cost item in the short summary that we gave. We have a tax summary of the tax, summary of every detail on the summary view, which you can drill into.
Okay, I think we're going to have to, I'm going to bring into the show our change maker, Natalie, Julia, who else we got? We got Mary, and of course our wonderful producer, Hallie. We're getting to the show, but please don't go, because we have got a little goodbye surprise for you all. Because what we do want to do is we want to thank everybody who's been a guest on the show over this last season, and to share maybe just some of the highlights of the show. Thank you, everybody, and especially thank you to Juan Carlos Gonzalez from Microsoft. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Brian and Nitsan, for sharing your insights on global mobility.
Hey, Nydia.
Hi, Brian.
It's so great to have you both. So, Peter, that has been just the most fascinating insight, and it's been an amazing show. And everyone is saying the same. I'm safe, I belong, I matter. And are you awake?
I'm awake.
Let's hope you don't wake your children up.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Take care, everybody, and we'll see you all next week. Goodbye. Thank the wonderful Shelley Cross. As I said, you've been an absolute breathtaking in our industry. Goodbye to our wonderful guests, to Tessa and to Arjun. All that really remains is for me to thank this amazing panel we've had today. That has been the most amazing and inspirational conversation. Your positivity, Sue, just shines through. It's been an honour to have you on the show. And the cat's there! Yeah! Give it up for Stinky Tofu. So tell us, Why is this cat so famous? This cat is a legend in our industry, especially to our superstar guest, Dawn. It's been wonderful to have you on the show. And Bernard, thank you so much for being such a great guest. It's been absolutely fantastic to meet with the wonderful, wonderful Susie Chapman, and indeed to help you celebrate diversity, and in particular Pride Month. That's obviously this. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to thank Spencer for being our guest, for sharing so much about his fascinating life and work experience. Mark, it's been fascinating hearing what you've had to say.
So don't be afraid to embrace AI, and remember to have fun with the implementation process.
Love it.
Have a great vacation, whatever you're doing, and don't worry, you'll still be hearing from Benivo one way or another over the coming months. It's just we will be off air for the show for August. Take care, everybody, and see you all in September.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.